Dude, I think Obi Toppin is going to be a big, big problem for the league this year. Yo, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Yelling and Propelling, episode number 13. Shout out to Savi Mikhailuk, Jalen Harris, and Gene Montero, three different players that the Knicks brought on training camp deals to compete for a roster spot in training camp, which has begun as of earlier this week. And that's the indication that the regular season tip-off is upon us, ladies and gentlemen. It is less than a month away, just a few short weeks away, and the 2022-2023 NBA season will have begun, and let the madness ensue. So let me go over the weekly recap segment, just a couple of things that went down. I'd say the biggest news that broke since the last time I spoke to you was that Ime Udoka, Celtics head coach, who obviously had a phenomenal first year in Boston, was suspended for the entire season, ladies and gentlemen. The first reports that broke was that he was having a consensual relationship with somebody in the organization below him, which isn't allowed, but it didn't seem like it was that big of a deal. Then things came out that it was non-consensual. There's some non-consensual things going on between him and the unnamed female. But then the next morning, the hammer was brought down by the organization, and they suspended him for the entire season. I think there's a real possibility that we may never see Ime Udoka coach for the Celtics again. This is not the kind of thing, you can't get suspended for an entire year, be away from the organization for that amount of time, and then pick back up the very next season like nothing's changed. There's going to be permanent damage done between him and his players, between him and the rest of his coaching staff. So just don't be surprised if we never see Udoka coach for the Celtics again. He may get an opportunity elsewhere eventually after things blow over, after, some things are proven false. But the fact of the matter is that we don't have all of the details right now. But from the way it's trending, just do not be surprised if we never see Ime Udoka in that head coaching role with Boston that we saw him in last season. One of two trades that went down in the past 2.5 weeks was Bojan Bogdanovic being dealt to the Detroit Pistons in exchange for Kelly Olynyk and Saben Lee. Let me first talk about how the Detroit Pistons roster is actually looking like it's not something to be messed with, and I like the direction that they're headed. You build around Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, and you got a veteran here coming in like Bogdanovic. You got a couple other exciting young guys on the roster, and that's a team that could brew up something nice for the next couple of years. This season, probably not. If I had to take a guess, I'd say play-in tournament is in their future. You shake the 8 ball, and what's the prediction? Where are they going to end up? I'd say a 7th through 10th seed, but that's progress, and that's not something to be ashamed of. But for the Jazz, obviously, all of their veterans have been up on the trade block ever since Donovan Mitchell got traded. You could argue ever since, Rudy Gobert got traded. So, yeah, Bogdanovic is the first one of them to go. And speaking of the Jazz, a former member of the Utah Jazz was dealt just a couple days ago in a very strange reserve swapping kind of trade that went down between the Thunder and the Rockets. Listen to this. So Derek Favors was the former Utah Jazz player I was mentioning. He got traded along with Ty Jerome, Mo Harkless, Theo Maledon. It's a fun name to say, Theo Maledon. And a second-round pick in exchange for David Nwaba, Sterling Brown, Trey Burke, and Marquise Chris. So the Thunder gained 2 trade exceptions in the deal, while the Rockets got a second-rounder in exchange for, taking on a little bit of additional salary, whatever. It's kind of like a meaningless deal, but it's just a trade that, honestly, it seems like helped out both organizations. So certainly not league-altering in any way, shape, or form. The New Orleans Pelicans re-signed C.J. McCollum to a 2-year, $64 million extension. That's just about what we would expect for him. It's like a shorter deal, about the amount of money that they were expected to give him. No real surprise there. And the Pelicans, again, just like I was saying with the Pistons, they might have something brewing there, a nice blend of veterans and young talent. So CJ is among the veterans, and if he can just continue his efficient scoring, he was in a little bit of a slump last year, but I'm curious to see how the Pelicans and CJ McCollum turn out this year. And the last notable thing that went down, at least in my opinion, was Blake Griffin, just yesterday actually, got signed to a 1-year fully guaranteed deal with the Celtics. Here we go with the Celtics again. This time it's good news. It's a low-risk, high-reward move for Boston, and they're kind of just... He's kind of looked at as a replacement for Danilo Gallinari. They acquired him earlier in the offseason, but when playing with the Italian national team over the summer, he tore his ACL in his left knee. So Blake Griffin could be, seen as a replacement for him and a little bit more depth at that power forward position. Hey, what do you say we talk Knicks now? Hope you guys are doing good. I hope you guys are doing great this weekend. Let's do it. Let's raise the question. What have the Knicks been busy with since the Donovan Mitchell trade went down? Well, first of all, actually, let me raise my own question. Have I gotten over that yet? And I'd say... yeah, I have for the most part. It would depend, of course, on how you define getting over things, but I'm very much looking forward to this season for the Knicks. I'm not living in the past. I'm no longer salty at our management for missing out on, number one, Jaden Ivey on draft night, if you guys recall that. And then, of course, as I'm sure you recall, Donovan Mitchell a few months later. But you know what? The bigger picture still looks pretty all right for the Knicks. There's some smudges on that picture for sure. There's some smudges. But it's still a fairly pleasing picture to glance at. So back to the original question I was trying to originally raise. What have the Knicks been busy with? How many trades and or signings have they made since the Donovan Mitchell deal? Well, the answer to that question is un gats, which is probably not Italian for zero. Obviously, putting aside the training camp deals that I mentioned earlier in the episode, the Knicks haven't done jack, which shouldn't come as a surprise since we concluded in the last episode that the Knicks were content entering this season with their current roster as is, and it looks like they're going to do just that. The only itty-bitty little thing of some importance was what Ian Begley said on SNY about a week back when he was asked what the odds the Knicks trade Julius Randle before the start of the season are. He said, quote, "I'm not a big odds guy, but I'd say 40%. Now you can take this one of two ways. One, oh my goodness, there is still hope that Julius Randle gets traded. Let's go. Begley knows something that we do not. That's one way. That's not the way I'm taking. Number two is that you have to look at this report and say, well, you don't really hear of reports from other teams saying that there's a 40% chance somebody gets traded because those just get swept under the rug, and rightfully so. 40%. There's a 40% chance it's going to rain like on sunny days. It's not going to happen, is what I'm trying to tell you, folks. Julius Randle will not be traded. They're putting him in all the promos, like when they had a media day, just like earlier this week. He was in every picture. And they did the thing with the big three that we're, of course, getting clowned on. It was Randle, Brunson, and RJ. Knicks big three. How far you think they're going this season? SportsCenter always setting us up for lovely comments. But yeah, here's a rule of thumb. If a reporter says there's below a 50% chance that somebody's getting traded, he's not getting traded. I mean, we've heard nothing else. Like, there's very little interest in Julius Randle right now around the league. And we know this. His trade value is not high. It's very, very low. So it's in the Knicks' best interest at this time to play Julius Randle for this season, at least until the trade deadline. And if you'd like to view this as something where, let Randle play, let him raise his trade value, and then at the trade deadline deal him, and then we work with what we've got on the roster without Randle on it. So, if you'd like to view it as that, be my guest. I will not hate you for it. But I'm going to take it upon myself to no longer view Julius Randle as the outsider on the roster. He's on the team, so I'm going to support him. Just like I support, RJ Barrett. Just like I support Obi Toppin. I might not be as big of a fan, but I'm supporting every player on the Knicks. He did nothing criminally wrong last year. Yes, he played significantly worse than he did the year prior. Believe it or not, a lot of players on the Knicks last year played worse than they did in 2020. And you know what? I really liked what I saw out of Randle in the media day that we had earlier this week. He answered a particular question and said this. In 2020, we were riding high and I was the man, so it was real easy for me to take accountability and say, put it on me. Put it on me. Do not blame the team. I've got to be better. It's on me, not the team. The next year, last year, 2021, he admitted that it was much, much harder when he was playing a lot worse and the team was not doing nearly as well. So it was harder for him to go up in front of the press after every loss, in games that we should have won, and there was a lot of them. I really like to see that out of Randle and that accountability, and that's the name of the game here. Speaking of NBA Media Day and the word accountability, Derrick Rose pretty much used that word in every answer that he gave to the press on Media Day, so I don't know, I just thought that was relevant. But yeah, Julius Randle. Listen, I'm not trying to be a Julius Randle apologist. I'm not trying to say, you know what, last year actually wasn't that bad. It was bad. It was bad. What I'm proposing is that we play Julius Randle in a lesser role. Please, Tom Thibodeau, if you're listening, please. This is one of many things I think we really need to experiment with this upcoming season, and honestly, it's probably atop that list as well. With that being said, what better time for me to let you guys know what I think the Knicks starting lineup should be on opening night, which, by the way, in case you were unaware, is October 19th in Memphis against the Grizzlies, 7:30 p.m. So then opening night at the Garden, our home opener, will be that following Friday, the 21st. MSG, of course, 7:30 p.m. as well against the Detroit Pistons. So who do I think should be the first five that Tom Thibodeau is sending out there in Memphis to kick the season off? Well, that's the whole premise of this video, is that my starting five will differ from Tom Thibodeau's, what I want versus what he wants and obviously will get. But first off, the point guard, obviously, I would like to see Jalen Brunson running the point, starting, and I'm sure that my wish will be granted because we did not pay him all that money to come here and, back up Derrick Rose. Derrick Rose is getting up there in age and would benefit from a lesser role backing up Brunson. And a point guard rotation of Jalen Brunson and Derrick Rose sounds pretty friggin' awesome to me. Shooting guard. Quentin Grimes is who I want to play the shooting guard next to Jalen Brunson in our starting backcourt. I think that they could end up complementing each other very, very well. And what Brunson lacks is size and defensive ability, which Grimes brings to the table, no doubt. He has great size for the position, and he would also benefit from Julius Randle, RJ Barrett, and Jalen Brunson kickouts, of course, just as Evan Fournier did last season. And I don't want Fournier to play 0 minutes the entire season and not even, have a bench role. I want him to have a bench role. I want him to be our shooter off the bench, the spark plug, the veteran scorer off the bench. I think he could really thrive in that role, as I think Quentin Grimes could really thrive with that starting unit. Small forward, RJ Barrett, of course, the Maple Mamba. The only reason he wouldn't be starting at small forward on opening night or at any point during this season would be that he would be playing shooting guard if we slid someone like Cam Reddish in at the starting small forward spot, which I think would be a great idea. I think that has the potential to be awesome, but I don't think that's something that we're going to see anytime soon. So moving along, power forward, Julius Randle I want to start, and I know the idea of Obi Toppin starting is super enticing, but, with Randle on the roster, I think that if we put him in a lesser role, then it's in the team's best interest to start Randle and play him with, guys he's played with before, and play Obi Toppin off the bench with his boy Quickly and Derrick Rose. He can benefit from those playmakers, and our bench unit is going to be real, real scary. So, yeah, I just want him playing more minutes. Don't get me wrong. I don't want Randle playing 36 minutes and then Toppin only 12, like we saw way too many times last year. I think it should be much more balanced there, and I think Obi should really have some plays ran for him and things like that. But for now, at the start of the season, I'd still like to see Randle starting and Obi off the bench, backing him up. Our starting center, I would like to see our man Mitchell Robinson, who we paid over the summer, holding down the paint, with, of course, Isaiah Hartenstein, the new guy on the block, backing him up. And for the minutes distributed between the two of them, I would say like 28-30 for Mitchell Robinson, and then like 18-20 for Isaiah Hartenstein backing him up. Now let's take a step into Tom Thibodeau's minefield and see who he would have starting. Well, I'll just fire off real quickly. Jalen Brunson will obviously be starting at the point guard. We all know this. There's no reason to believe that he wouldn't be. Shooting guard, he does not think Quentin Grimes is ready to be starting quite yet, and it seems as if Evan Fournier is set to be the starting shooting guard unless something changes during training camp, and it doesn't look good for Grimes' case, actually, because he was in a walking boot the other day. They said it was for, I think, a low-grade ankle sprain, something very minor. So it looks like Fournier will be starting, which is, one spot where me and Tibbs would differ. The rest really does look the same, though, with R.J. Barrett at shooting guard, Julius Randle at power forward, and Mitchell Robinson starting at center. So obviously there's only one positional difference between my starting lineup and Tibbs's. So that's not a bad thing, right? We can make do with that. Here's where it gets confusing and becomes problematic. The entire rotation is where, that's where me and Tibbs are going to have the biggest difference, and where most Knicks fans will, differ from Tibbs's opinion. So just let's go off the list. Emmanuel Quickley. A lot of people said that he should have been moved into that starting point guard spot before we ended up signing Brunson. Now people are like, okay, well, when's Quickley going to get a shot? Listen, I want nothing more than to see Emmanuel Quickley become this team's sixth man. And we saw it in his rookie season, for crying out loud. He was literally like Lou Will in his prime at times. He's become such a better playmaker as well. So him with that second unit that I'm just about to go over, I think would be awesome. And the high hopes we had for our bench last year, I think those could really come true this year. Being known as the team with the best bench in the league, and then quickly leading that unit with, of course, Derrick Rose as his starting, just backcourt mate. And, they've got plenty of chemistry together from that, again, his rookie season and our playoff run. It was always so fun to see Quickley and Derrick Rose playing off of each other. They're just kind of combo guards, and they could both play the point guard whenever need be. And yeah, I really think that'll be a fun thing to watch this year. Quickley and Derrick Rose back on the court at the same time. So there's your second string point guard and shooting guard. Put them however which way you will. Derrick Rose point, Quickley shooting guard, or vice versa. Backup small forward, of course, is Evan Fournier, because I would move him out of the starting shooting guard spot, so then he slides down to small forward. It's a bit more of small ball there, but I think Fournier's 6'6". He'll be all right. Backup power forward, of course, Obi Toppin. Please just throw the man lobs. Throw it up, forget about it. He's slamming it down. And if we can see that three ball come around this year and be really, really consistent, dude, I think Obi Toppin is going to be a big, big problem for the league this year. Backup center, Isaiah Hartenstein. I mentioned it before, 18, 20 minutes a game. I think he could really provide a valuable boost off the bench and give us something that Mitch doesn't really give us, and we haven't had from a center in many years. He's a great playmaker for a center. I think he was second in assists in his position behind, of course, only Jokic, and he can stretch the floor. So that second unit, again, it just adds to the value and the stock of that second unit for sure. Now, here's the thing, guys. Tom Thibodeau's second unit, again, wouldn't look much different than that, of course, with just Quentin Grimes playing the small forward, because Evan Fournier will be in his starting lineup. But where the biggest problem is, of course, you've been waiting for me to say his name, Cam Reddish. He's the odd man out, and he's the 11th man on the roster. You have the starting lineup, starting five, the bench five, and then not too many teams play an 11-man rotation, especially Tom Thibodeau. We're gonna see him, a couple weeks, maybe a month into the season. He's probably gonna go to what he knows best, which is a 9-man rotation rather than a 10. He'll start off the season with 10 men getting 15 plus minutes a game, but after that, it really as you get closer and closer to the end of the season, his starters play more and more minutes and the bench plays less. So with Tom Thibodeau as our coach and Cam Reddish as that odd man out, it's going to be tough for him to get minutes. But I personally feel that we really need to find him minutes on this team. And if we're not doing that, why haven't we traded him yet? If there's no intentions of clearing up a spot there, if we trade a Fournier, if we trade a Derrick Rose, why is Cam Reddish still on the roster? You might as well get something for him before his contract goes up and he leaves in free agency and makes a tell-off book about his horrible experience on the Knicks, because we've played him 35 minutes in total for his career on the Knicks, last season. So yes, here's my thing. I think that it would benefit the Knicks if we were to move one of our veterans that are creating that logjam. As much as I love Derrick Rose, I think that we could get a pretty decent amount for him, and I think that the Knicks should explore options for trading him and or possibly Evan Fournier. So that could free up the spot for Cam Reddish and really could just set our team up for the future because, Derrick Rose and Evan Fournier, they're really not a part of this long-term plan. It doesn't look like they are. We're not going to be championship contenders this year, and they're guys, Derrick Rose deserves his ring, man. I really want to see Derrick Rose get a ring and, trade him to the Lakers. I mean, he'll have a better, maybe not have a better shot there, but listen, I'm not dying for it. I don't think that it's a necessity before we start the year. I'm not saying that it's a necessity, before the trade deadline that we do it, but I just really want to see my boy Cam Reddish get some minutes. And that's the biggest thing between Tibbs and I. He clearly isn't in, he sees Cam Reddish as situational, and that's his word. He says that about, a lot of players on the roster. He said that about a lot of players in his coaching career, so Cam Reddish just unfortunately falls into that situational spot that we saw like Kevin Knox get pushed into. Kevin Knox definitely deserved to get pushed into there. No disrespect intended to Mr. Knox, of course. I think he's on the Pistons now. I don't know why every former Knicks player decides to either go to the Pistons or the Mavericks. But anyways, yeah, it would really stink if we didn't get the chance to showcase Cam Reddish's talent, especially playing with his former roommate, RJ Barrett. You just got to hope that Cam Reddish is going to be ready when the opportunity presents itself because there will be injuries, Sooner rather than later, he could step in and play some meaningful minutes for the team. And I hope that he showcases his talent. I think he's going to be a really good player in this league eventually. I think he's definitely gotten off to a slow start in his career. He's had some, ups and downs, but I think whether it's on the Knicks or another team, I think Cam Reddish will end up being a very, very good player. And if you happen to be wondering what is the case with Deuce McBride, what's the case with Jericho Sims and our rookie Trevor Keels, who we drafted in the second round this past year, they definitely will not be getting minutes at any point in the season unless there were some serious injuries because, again, with Tibbs and his 9-man rotation, if there's only one injury, he might just say, you're injured, well, nobody's replacing you, we'll give more minutes to Julius Randle and Devin. I combined Eric, now I'm saying even more random names. I'm just going to include all this because it's kind of funny. I tried to say Evan Fournier and Derrick Rose, but yeah, he'll just give more minutes to the veterans if one person gets hurt. But anyways, yeah, they're probably not going to be playing. There's a good chance that they won't get any minutes aside from garbage time this year just because we have so many players that are also deserving of minutes. So I hope that Trevor Keels, for example, goes to the G League and can gain some confidence there because he had some really rough games during Summer League, which, made a lot of Knicks fans disinterested in him. So I hope that he can gain some confidence there. I hope Deuce and Jericho Sims can go and be a 1-2 punch for the Westchester Knicks and that the Westchester Knicks will just ball out. So, yeah, those three, I really like them, but I don't think they're getting into this. I don't think they're cracking the rotation anytime soon. One final question I would like to raise before I get you guys out of here. It's in the title. Can Obi Toppin and Julius Randle play together? Well, if I haven't made it clear enough yet, my answer is no, I don't think they can. Listen, we saw it in spurts, very, very tiny spurts in the past 2 years, and it doesn't work. I don't care. Like, there's this thing going around. Knicks Twitter is talking about how the advanced statistics with Obi and Julius Randle on the floor at the same time, look great, and it would be in the Knicks' best interest, put them on the floor at the same time and see what we got. I feel like we don't need to do that. That's one thing I don't really want to experiment with this year, The numbers actually are so inflated by garbage time minutes, and I saw it. I promise you guys that I'm not bullcrapping you when I literally say I watch every single Knicks games to the very end, whether we're down by 30 or up by 30. I watch the garbage time minutes too, so trust me, that's not something that we need to see any more of. And, there's just, when there's no rim protector and they just don't work well together. They're both power forwards, and it's not a big deal. They can play, separately, and that's fine. But yeah, I don't think that Julius Randle and Obi Toppin can play together, and I don't think that Tibbs is gonna experiment with it anymore this year unless he really has to, and his hand is forced by injuries or whatever it is. That right there does it for episode 13 of Yelling and Propelling. I really hope you enjoyed. Leave a comment, shoot me a DM. Any feedback that you have, I'd love to hear it. And yeah, that's just about all I got, guys. So close, to the beginning of the season. It's right there. We can smell it. The lights at the end of the tunnel. This dreaded off season is almost over. The off season of Donovan Mitchell. Oh man, maybe I didn't get over that yet. Whatever. Farewell for now. Have a superb rest of your day or night, and I hope to see you again soon. Go Knicks.